So welcome to my channel. If you're new here, which you probably are because I'm new. So my name is Claudeline, and if you don't know how to say that, don't worry, you're not alone. So this is a video on how I graduated college with a 3.9 GPA, and I'm going to give you 7 tips on how to possibly do that as well. So I know that by the time I upload this video, a lot of you would have just started spring semester. Now, if you're not in college or you already finished college, you might be a student, a high school student, you may be even a teacher. These tips will probably still help you either guide yourself or guide others that you're trying to teach. So, of course, I can't guarantee that these tips will get you a 3.9 or a 4.0 or a 4.0 plus. This is just how I personally got a 3.9 and how you could possibly step up your game. And if you think, oh my god, I'm not smart. Like, no, I had like a 2 point something in GPA in high school, and if I did it, you can do it too. Like, trust, I believe in you. You got this. So, first thing first is you're going to get a planner. Like this, like this, like this. I mean, it doesn't even matter. It depends on what works for you. These are just the planners that I've had over the years. This is like the planner I had from 6th, 7th grade, and that was like a school mandated thing, and it changed my life forever. Like, props to whoever's idea that was. What you're going to do is you're going to get all your shits together, and you're going to get it all together and put it in the planner. And shit is together, and you take somewhere, and take somewhere, you know, like, just take it to the time store and select and put it, and take time with you, and I don't care what you do. You're just gonna, okay, that was a Rick and Morty thing, just ignore that. But yeah, planners are really going to help you out because it's going to let you know what is actually possible within 24 hours. Wow, that's like 72 hours right there of productivity. And it's also going to tell you what is happening in your month and when to freak out and when not to freak out. You have scheduled freaking out times, isn't that great? If you're one of those people that would rather have a planner on your handheld device and that works for you, that's great. Less waste of paper, less trees dying. But I personally needed a separation from technology. I benefited from a physical planner and handy dandy classic traditional pen. Based on the Pavlov or conditioning principle, pairing a planner with your productivity time actually trains your brain to focus in demand. But yeah, it tells your brain when to like shut up and actually go do stuff. And then another thing for you academics, you know that piece of paper that your professor hands out on like the first day of school, and then everyone just kind of ignores them for an hour? Yeah, it's called the syllabus. So what you're actually supposed to do on those days is sync up to your mental cloud, sync into your professor's mental cloud, and then put all that shiz that's in there into your planner. So your syllabus should have all the exam dates, all your reading chapters for that lecture, and also the assignment deadlines. So then you write them all down in your monthly calendar. Whoa! In your monthly calendar, and then you'll get a better idea of how much you're supposed to be learning within that week, or however your professor decides to plan your lectures. Then you'll also know when you're behind, how much you're behind by, and what you need to do to catch up, and exactly what chapters you need to read to catch up. It's going to be so much less overwhelming. Trust. I mean, the exams are still gonna suck, but it'll suck less. And also, you'll never be that kid that's going like, oh my god, there's an exam tomorrow. No, you're gonna be that kid that's like, oh yes, we have an exam on January 26th, March 19th, April 20th, and May the 4th. And you're gonna sound a little nerdy, but you're gonna be like that kid that saves everyone's butt. Ooh, also about planners, if you think it's not important to have a plan, we only have about 7 to 9 slots in our memory. That means that we can only hold about 7 to 9 items in there before your brain just starts kicking it out and not saving it. Second tip is, if you struggle with reading large blocks of text like I do, I actually got this tip from my research methods professor in college. What you do is, wow, I should have like flipped to it ahead of time, honestly. Hold up, it's okay. You got this. Oh, look, okay. And what you're actually supposed to do is read the summary first. See, it says summing up. Wow, it's great. Because what that will do is give you a general idea of what to expect, and you'll be less confused going into the deep end. It's kind of like watching a movie trailer before you go watch the movie. You get a general idea of the genre. They don't just like throw you into a Chucky movie and you're like, what? I thought this was going to be a kid's movie. I also recommend reading the summary of the chapter before going into your lecture so that when you walk in, at least you'll know what the heck your professor is trying to talk about. Also, I read the little questions on the margin. You probably can't see it because you're so far away, but it says like, what have I learned? That is going to test your brain. They're going to be like mini quizzes with no punishment, and that will tell you if your brain actually absorbed the information, and you're not just going to walk into your test and freaking out like, I thought my brain absorbed the information and then it's gone. No, you'll know it right then and there after the chapter. If you're cramming, okay, don't cram, like just don't. I did it, but don't do it. So third is, hold up. Use flashcards. You know, in chapters, they have like a list of vocabs. And these vocabs are probably stuff that you've never heard of. Unless you're smart, then like bless you. What I usually do is, these are my husband's flashcards, so I don't even know what he's writing in there. With the flashcards, what I usually do is put the vocab word on one side. And then for the definition side, I condense it into my own words. So for example, mitochondria, I'll just write on the other side, powerhouse. What you can do is quiz yourself, and you'll know exactly where your weak points are and which parts to go back and review. Alright, and then for our fourth tip, to study your professor. And by studying your professor, what I actually mean is to get a general idea of their habits and their testing style. So for example, a professor will be lecturing, and at some point they start emphasizing things that are gonna be on the test. They can be like, oh yeah, and then about the attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, and it is different from the attention deficit disorder. You see how they emphasize hyperactivity? Like, they're gonna ask in the test, what's the difference between ADD and ADHD? It's the H, and the H stands for hyperactivity. Yeah, they'll emphasize words, and you kind of just learn to pay attention to that. You learn to nitpick it and like when to for sure write that. And for their testing styles, there's actually two types of questions. There is conceptual, and then there is definition. So definition questions are the what and which questions. Usually the format of that is, what is, which of the vocabs below is the right answer. And then it'll usually give you a definition and you just give out the vocab word, or vice versa. Like I said earlier, the best way to study for those kind of questions is with flashcards. As for the conceptual, those are usually the why questions or if questions. Like, if Sally was showing so-and-so symptom and you need to create a therapy program for her, which of these programs are going to be the best fit and why? It's a bit more in depth, and you're going to need the definition to be able to answer that question, but you also need to know how it applies to real life. If you see your first exam and there's a lot of conceptual questions, I would say just pay a lot of attention to your professor. And that's where studying your professor comes in really handy. And also, if a certain question that just totally didn't make sense to you, like you didn't even know what it was asking, I recommend asking the professor. If they're kind of not a dick, then they won't mind. Or they shouldn't. That's their job. Another small tip is, a lot of people, or at least me, I thought that everything the professor said was clear-cut and like set in law. They're actually just human. If you kind of let them know what's up, then you can negotiate. It's about deadlines. Okay, don't do that too much. Like, at least earn their trust first. Be a decent student. It's worth a try, you know? What's the worst that can happen? Besides making you cry, but you'll get over it. You'll be fine. And then for my fifth tip is, skip caffeine on exam days. This is for the people that have test anxiety like I do. And by test anxiety, what I mean is, you go into the test, you open your test booklet, and all of a sudden, boom, your mind goes blank, and then you're sweating bullets, and then your heart is racing like you just ran a marathon. And a lot of people have it, and it's perfectly normal. But it is in our culture to drink caffeine in some form. Oh, my neighbor's passing by, that's weird. Oh, more neighbors passing by, please don't look. So caffeine increases your heart rate, which makes you even more susceptible to heightened anxiety. So just skip it for this morning, because the moment you open that exam, your heart is going to race, and that is going to wake you up. That is going to be your caffeine of the day. Anxiety is your caffeine of the day. Huh. Another thing that I started doing was asking my professors if I can use earplugs during exams. I get really distracted when I just hear. Every time someone flips a paper, I get so distracted and it wastes so much time. So I just asked them it's an earplugs. Like, even check it out. It's not electronic, no one's whispering in my ear. I just breeze through the exam in my own pace. Well, at least a better pace. Right, and then for my 6th tip, that is to always review your exam results. Your professor will probably pass back the exams, show you your heartbreaking results, or you're fine. You'll be fine. This is okay. So your professors will give you back your results, and you have like 5 minutes or so to look it up. If that's not enough time, you can just write it down, which ones you got wrong, so that you can look back at the text, so that you can correct the definitions and the concept in your mind. Just review it so that you know what's wrong, what you're missing for the final exam. And trust me, that's going to go a long way. For each question you got wrong in the first exam, second exam, third exam, you're probably still going to get that wrong in your final if you don't correct yourself. And for my 7th tip, that is to use the things you're learning in class and apply it to real life. Like, if I had just had a lecture on late adulthood and I was learning about sleep apnea or arthritis, what I usually would do is after class, I'll just kind of look around the world and be like, you have symptoms of arthritis. Right after the lecture, just step outside and see how that concept applies to the people around you. Someone really bouncing a basketball right now? Fam. Oh my god. And doing this is just going to make it more fun and relatable. By doing that, it's not just going to look like words in a book that are just like totally cumbersome. It's going to actually make it seem like there's a point, that you're here for a reason. And that's just one of the things that you're supposed to be learning in college. That intrinsic motivation, that's what you're really paying for. So those are my tips, and of course there's going to be variables, certain variables and factors that go into how effective these tips will be, like how competitive your school is, how high are the expectations that are being put on you. If your professors are crappy, like they just read the PowerPoint and don't really care about whether you're learning it or not. And then of course there's also the people that just have a really full schedule. Those are going to factor how effective you're going to be able to use these tips, because these tips, they are pretty time consuming. At the end of the day, it's your life. We're all different. We all work different. I hope that it will help you. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment down below to see if you want any other videos like this. Okay, alright, thank you for watching, and oh, if you're wondering why I didn't get a 4.0, I could make a video about that. I would probably title it something like, why I didn't get a 4.0 and why it doesn't matter.